Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. I personally like, or by default, go to the source as much as I can. And that is, I like to listen to the subject's statements. Watch his body language, listen to his voice, his intonation, and all of the above. And then there's no more misinterpretations. The second option is to hear someone talk about that, but without giving you the context, without giving you the exact quotations. I don't really like that, but I like the primary source if I can. In this case, Vladimir Putin. Today is the last day, if I remember correctly, of the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. And it's a very important forum that is not covered really in the United States of America because when someone else has something good and we don't like them, then we ignore it or we just take a poop on it. So in this video, I will show you, obviously Putin had his speech, and I will use here the key subjects that he touched on. Very important. So this is what Putin says and how he reasons. Okay? So there's not going to be Cuomo or Don Lemon or other Schneiders and Leichbergs and all that telling you what Putin is and so on. This is what he says. Now, he might be lying. He might be interpreting things. That's his view. That's the way he thinks. That's the way you go to negotiate with someone and tells you, man, I don't like you because of this. You're ugly and your mom dresses you funny. And you say, hey, I'm actually fantastic and my mom dresses me very nicely. So, different opinions, but at least you know what the guy thinks about you or how he thinks, which is more important. To know how people think, not necessarily what they think, how the process to reach conclusions. That's more important than, oh, he said that. How did he reach that conclusion? What kind of mental process went inside that little attic? All right. So I have a few very important topics, which is, for instance, Vladimir Putin says that he wants all Ukraine. Actually, Ukraine is Russia. And he makes the point that actually the Ukrainians and the Russians are one people. Therefore, Ukraine is ours. How do you like that logic? Well, he's going to make that one. And Putin also makes a claim here that I'm going to show you all by one, but I'm just going in general now, kind of. Putin says that he's not looking to or demanding Ukraine's to surrender. He doesn't want Ukraine to surrender, but to recognize the situation on the ground. It's kind of tricky a little bit, that one, but nevertheless. So let's start with and the third one, he puts the West on notice, telling them you lost, and this is the alternative to your hegemony, which you're not the main violin anymore, according to Putin. So let's start with the first one. The first article is a general pointed subjects, pack. Russia today, Ukrainian sovereignty, worsening positions, and final mistake. Final mistake, that is Ukraine's final mistake, is if they do this, they will be wiped, if you know what I mean. Key takeaways from Putin's Q&A. The Russian president repeatedly touched on the Ukraine conflict during the plenary session of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. So here it is. First, Ukrainian surrender. Ask whether Moscow expects an unconditional surrender from Kiev, similar to the demand to his US counterpart Donald Trump is making of Iran. Putin said this is not the case. And he says, I'm quoting Putin, we are not seeking the surrender of Ukraine. We insist of recognition of the realities that have developed on the ground. So this is very strange. Now, you know how things started in Ukraine, and you know who initiated and how NATO came over, and these guys wanted to negotiate and so on. I'm not going to go over that. But to look at his statement in a different way would be like a guy who goes and does something bad to a woman. That is unsolicited love. So he goes and rapes a woman, and she fights back, and while he's still working and fights with her and all that, she's trying to fight back, and he said, well, I don't want you to surrender. I want you to recognize the realities that have developed. Well, the realities that are right now is that you penetrated me many times and you keep pumping. So, you want me to agree with this? Why don't we go to the beginning? But in this case, Putin's case, beginning is NATO. And the other case was the guy jumping on her. Okay? So I have a problem with it. What do you mean recognize it? The Ukrainians cannot recognize something that they say this is an aggression. They will never say, well, we've been used like batches by interest from the West or global interest. And we're not going to say that, but I think that's the reality. But Putin is going 5 steps ahead and saying, I don't care about it anymore. We don't want your surrender. I want you to recognize that we're beating you up. Therefore, you draw the conclusion. So that's the first one. Worsening, number 2. Worsening negotiation positions. Russia has consistently attempted to settle a conflict in the former Ukrainian Donbass, which erupted after the Western-backed 2014 Maidan coup. Through diplomatic means, the president said. However, these efforts were repeatedly undermined by Kiev and its backers, and I'm quoting Vladimir Putin. At each stage, we suggested to those whom we were in contact in Ukraine to stop and said, let's negotiate now. Because the logic of purely military actions can result in your situation getting worse, and then we will have to conduct our negotiations from our other positions, from positions that are worse for you. This happened several times. So Putin said, if you continue and you don't recognize the realities in the front, or how did you say, the realities that have developed, we're going to continue advancing, which is a fact. And little by little, you're going to get worse, because we're going to go worse. Instead of negotiating now, when we get more territory, we got stronger and you got bloodier and tired, then your power to negotiate will diminish. So that's logical. He said, you should have done it earlier. But the backers don't care, because it's not the backers, not Boris Becker. The sponsors, they make profits. So it doesn't affect them. So why would they care? They push until Ukraine breaks. And then when it breaks, they move away, like they move from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from Libya, from South Africa, from Yugoslavia, from Syria. They will move away, because everything these guys touch, they fuck up. That's a fact. You can demonstratively fact. All right. Number 3. Foreign-fueled conflict. Negotiations held in Istanbul in early 2022, shortly after the conflict escalated, fell apart under the pressure for the same neo-colonial forces. What I've been telling you. Now, you can disagree with that, obviously. I let you do that. So, and I'm quoting, those who are guided by old neo-colonial principles, including and above all in Europe, thought that now they would easily profit at the expense of Russia, crush it, destroy it, annihilate it, and receive some dividends from it. There are still, but they will not win the war. Ukraine's sovereignty. Russia has never denied Ukraine's right to exist as an independent nation, Putin said. However, in the years since the Soviet Union's collapse, the country has drifted from the principles of which it originally gained its independence. Remember, the principles on which it originally be given independence, gain, given. But he's using right here different words. And I'm quoting, the grounds on which Ukraine became independent and sovereign were set out in the Declaration of Independence of Ukraine in 1991, where it's clearly written in black and white that Ukraine is a, pay attention, non-aligned, non-nuclear, neutral state. It would be a good idea to resume to those fundamental values on which Ukraine gained its independence and sovereignty, end quote, he said. At the same time, Putin reiterated his belief that in a certain sense, all of Ukraine is Russian. In a certain sense. And I'm quoting, I have said many times that I consider Russians and Ukrainians to be one people. In fact, in this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. Now, what are you going to do with that one? Well, that's what they claim. I mean, I don't know if it's the same, but Putin said on some occasions, he didn't say it that way, but he said that actually the Ukrainians are Russians who were Polish-sized, I mean, with Polish influences. That's how he says. They called them Malo Russians. Malo means small, malenki. That's malenki. Malo Russians. So I know the Ukrainians don't like that, but that's a different take on that. I know that for a fact. All right, let's go back here. Going nuclear would be Kiev's final mistake. Got it? Our response right here, obtaining and using a nuclear device of any sort, including a dirty bomb, would be the final mistake for Kiev, the Russian president warned. This would trigger a mirror response from Moscow with catastrophic consequences for Ukraine. That means if you do something like this, we're gonna destroy you. And I'm quoting, our response will be very harsh and most likely catastrophic for both the neo-Nazi regime and unfortunately for Ukraine itself. See how he keeps them separate, the Ukrainian nation and the guys in charge of the Ukrainian nation? I hope that they will never come to that, Putin stated, adding that Moscow currently has no intelligence suggesting that Kiev is attempting to do so. I hope they don't do it. All right. I think the Americans will stop them before these guys are doing, or the Brits. But the Brits, I think they will push for it, but as long as it's controlled. But non-nuclear is not going to be the case. They don't want that. They don't make a profit if the Brits allow, let's say, I'm just giving a scenario, if the Brits or whomever allows the Ukrainians to have one and use one, that means they're over. It's like when you have a little property and you get some money out of the property, you see? Let's say you rent the property. It's still there. Now, if someone comes over and it just blows up your property, you can't rent it anymore. It's done. The deal is over. You don't get the little that you used to. Through your profits, arms, loans, and intelligence and all that is over. So they don't want to shoot themselves for the final, countdown. Next, Ukrainian military thinned out. All right, it's a different story. They said Kiev actions created an additional 1,600-kilometer line of contact. That is, when they invaded Kursk, he claims. Russian troops could go deeper into Ukraine. Putin did not rule out the possibility of advancing further into Ukrainian territory to establish a buffer zone to protect Russian border areas from further attacks. Following the defeat of Ukrainian forces in Kursk, Russia's troops moved into Ukraine's Sumy region. According to Putin, the buffer zone there is already up to 12 kilometers deep. Let me show you Sumy region, so what he's talking about. I'm going to pull out, not that, a map. Here it is. Here is the map of Ukraine, and Sumy is right here. And this is where the Russians supposedly they are going to create. They want to create about 100-kilometer buffer zone. That's a lot, like here. So they say there are 12 kilometers in there, right here. So if 12 kilometers in here, according to him, then you take that 12, multiply it by 10, could be around right here. So they want by Kiev of Ukraine, right there. So probably from here you go from Nikolaev, but I think they will take Odessa, straight, go around Kiev and stop there and meet Belarus here. All right, next topic, or at least next article from Sputnik. Russia not seeking Ukraine's surrender, seeks recognition of situation on ground. Again, I already discussed that thing, but it's kind of like crazy. All right, next one. Russia not seeking Ukraine's surrender, Putin. All right, he just again the same thing. And the last one is Putin's message to the West at SPIEF. Your dominance is over. BRICS Plus is the future. I told you. And the Americans know it. What are they going to do? Threaten. All right, the Russian president remarks at SPIEF about the need for a new model of development free of golden billion neocolonialism is based on the observation of the world balance of power that have unfolded since the US financial crisis of 2008. Today, the emerging countries have emerged to the extent of being comparable individually China or collectively BRICS plus to overcome Western countries. Putin's remarks are addressed to the US but are also warning to the European former powers that still have not abandoned the outdated path of Eurocentrism. So, they're going to do it, and what's going to happen? The Americans, unfortunately, I have to tell you this, I don't like it, but that's how I think the facts are there, the historical evidence, you just click it if you want. After 1991, however you want to twist it and turn it, the United States of America won. Clearly, the enemy, Soviet Union, disintegrated. Disintegrated because of various reasons. The point is, it was no more over there. It had nuclear weapons, but it was controlled by the United States of America, more or less during Yeltsin times. Remember, CIA had offices in Moscow, for instance, and USA had observers in the Russian nuclear military bases. The Russians did not have that in America or United States. So that tells you who was in charge. The US Secretary of State, State Department, they and the CIA were, were supported and advising Boris Yeltsin in the second elections to win. They were in his staff, helping Yeltsin win. Foreign government, but they talk about the Russian interference in our elections. Everything almost these guys claim everybody else did or does, they did it worse. It seems like. They talk Iran should not have nuclear weapons, but these guys dropped 2 atomic bombs onto civilian citizens. Anyway, but they are the arbiter, the judge here. So that was when the United States of America won. Now, at that point, the United States of America had the chance to be the city on the hill, the town on the hill, the village on the hill, to be the philosopher king, as Plato called it. Show the world that is going to be what they claim they are, exceptional. And they are to a certain extent, but they are losing it. So they had a chance, and other forces behind the United States of America destroyed that. The United States of America dropped, as I say, from its diplomacy toolbox many tools and remained with 4 tools in its diplomacy toolbox: threats, blackmail, regime change, and straight attack. That, if you look at Yugoslavia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, now they want Iran. Everywhere where they want something, they start with, I want that, you don't give it to me, I'm threatening you. I'm going to do this to you. And then you blackmail, and then you impose sanctions, and then you create a little issue over there with some rights that are not fully respected by the country or made up shit. And then you try to help those people because there are some people, some groups that are going to call for you to intervene in order to avoid the genocide. And then you intervene for humanitarian reasons. And when they strike you back, then you say, I'm going to respond. After you orchestrate all this. So that's history in the past, 32 years or so. 31, 32, 33 years, okay? They had the opportunity and they blew it. In the meantime, countries got stronger with the help of the United States of America, actually. Why? Because they allowed the capital to flow for profit, because they're in charge of the United States of America. So now it comes like a boomerang to hit them in the balls. They invested, they gave technology, and that's how you created more of a China, more of other countries, and that's it. Now they're competing with you economically. Before, I'm just kidding, they were using the to go and take care of their fields. Exaggeration. All right? No, they don't. They challenge you. I'm not saying those are baboons or anything like that. No, but you sped up the process exponentially. They caught up with you. So you're advancing, and these guys caught up with you. You help that. They should have just let them over there, and you could go and keep it or even increase it. But they didn't. Why? The greed. The greed. That's what it was. Greed of businesses and banks, obviously. So then these guys formed organizations like the, how do you call, the Road and Belt Shanghai organization. Then they got the BRICS organizations. And all these things were like, you know what? That's the bully boy. He's busy with his idiots over there in the Middle East to take more land and figure things out. They're over there, they're owned. They're very focused on that thing. But the world is bigger around. So while those guys were busy over there and with their trans and with the pink heads and cutting their balls and the pronouns, very important things in the US society, the other ones were building their military, they're building their societies, their economy, the culture, all that. And then they got together as friends. And these guys were busy about, no, I identify as this, I'm gonna call, all that idiotic. And those guys were working. And now these guys woke up from their little idiotic thing and look, and they see Russia, China, and these guys, India, in BRICS and so on, and look at, whoa, too late. The critical point was already gone when you could have done something. And now you're trying to again do garbage in Ukraine that shows the whole world the failure. And now they're gonna do, they go back, they are dragged back, the Americans, to take care in the Middle East for those guys. Go what? That's it. And the world sees that and is gonna say, you know what? I'm not gonna be afraid of you anymore, because it seems like the other side is capable of fending itself from you. So I'm gonna jump on this club instead of staying outside at the periphery of your plantation or inside of your plantation, which is NATO and European Union, the sphere of influence of the Americans, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan, Palau, New Bapu, ba. Now that's it, my friends. They had it, they blew it, too late. So now these guys have a chance either to stay in their own thing economically, because nobody will do business with the West, because the West worked, as I told you, so they're afraid. And these guys will have prosperity, or at least there will be a different club. They will be there, and they can't even attack them anymore, because the other guys will protect them. So that's it. Lost. For what? For what? Look what they did and where they went. They went to the Middle East. They were focused on the Middle East. What do we do over there and for whom? You know the answer. Starts with an I, and that's not Iraq or Iran. Thank you, or India. Thank you very much for being, or Indonesia. Thank you very much, or Italy. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.